Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Ken Hilder with ISSA Canada, and I chair the Building Service Contractor Council with ISSA, and they are the sponsors and the supporters of this event this morning to spend an hour with the icons of the industry. On my right side, we've got three owners and fathers of three of the largest, most respected contract cleaning companies in Canada. And on my left side, we have three of their sons and successors to the business. And today we're going to talk about how their businesses were started, how they were built and developed, perhaps some funny stories along the way. At the end of the session, we'll have a question and answer period, so there'll be time for you to kind of stick your hand up and ask any of these gentlemen a question. I'd like to take a minute and just recognize the members of our council, the BSC Council. We have 8 members from the industry in our council, and they include Yanni Boutsalis from Impact Cleaning Services, Paul Golden from B Clean Building Maintenance. We have Tony Raposo, who I think until recently spent 42 years in the industry with GDI, so he has a wealth of knowledge, and he's with us today. Tony, where are you in the audience? There he is at the back there. And we have Russell Hay with Scandinavian Building Services. We have, I don't want to forget anybody here, we have, of course, Michael Kroupa with the United Services Group on my left, and David Clementino with Hallmark Housekeeping Services. We have Gavin Badgen with Modern GDI, and we have Dimitri Kirkoudis, who you may know from J&A. They were recently acquired by GDS, and their new name is BGIS Sustainable Clean Solutions. And just an interesting point for those of you that know Dimitri, him and his wife celebrated the birth of their first son, Max, last week. So all the best to Dimitri and his family. So what I'd like to do is, without further ado, to get us started, I'd like to introduce our moderator who's going to walk each of our panelists through today's session. That's Chris King. Chris is a Senior Vice President with Hallmark Cleaning Services. A great guy, a great pleasure to work with. And so Chris, if you'd come up and get the show on the way, that'd be great.
Thanks, Ken, for, that's loud, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. As Ken mentioned, I'm Chris King, Senior Vice President of Hallmark Housekeeping Services, and I'll be your moderator for today's discussion. I have to say I'm privileged, honored, and delighted to participate in this panel, as I think it's going to be one of the most engaging and enlightening sessions that our industry has seen. Because today, it's father versus son, as the gloves come off and the ultimate clash of family and business. Joking, of course, it's not that kind of show today. As Ken mentioned, today we're extremely fortunate to be in the presence of 3 titans of the janitorial industry, alongside their successors and future business leaders. We're going to hear firsthand from the owners and fathers how they got started, the lessons they learned along the way, and how they feel about handing over the reins. We'll then turn to the successors and sons and find out where they're at in the transition and what some of their challenges have been, how they plan to move their companies forward. To conclude the discussion, we'll go back to our industry icons and ask them to share some advice for the next generation. I should also note that following our discussion, we're going to hold a brief Q&A session, so feel free to write down any questions that you have for our panelists as we move forward. Now, before I begin, I should tell you that I've never moderated a panel before. No one looks surprised right now. In fact, my recent Google searches include how to moderate a panel, mistakes to avoid as a moderator, and career consequences of ruining a panel event. But I'm going to do my best here. Also, I know some people have suggested that I may not be the appropriate person to moderate this event, given that both my bosses and competitors are sitting on the panel today. However, I want to assure you that my questions and process will have no bias whatsoever. So first question for Joe and Milan. Gentlemen, can you please recite the Declaration of Independence backwards and in Latin? And the first question for dearest Manny is, who is the best cleaning company and why is it Hallmark? Just kidding, of course. So without further ado, let's get started. And to get started, we want to learn how our owners got started. Milan, you fled Czechoslovakia at a young age in search of new opportunities. What inspired you to open a janitorial company, and how did you get started?
Hello. Yeah, it was fairly easy. When I finally escaped the communist regime, I came to Toronto. And the reason I have to mention that, the reason I chose Canada was very simple. I wanted to watch Canadian hockey. That was the key. So when we arrived, I didn't speak any English at all. So I went to school for about 6 months. And after 6 months, I was looking for a job. I was quite limited, of course, in choices. But I did find a daytime job and wasn't making enough to support my family. So I decided to look for a part-time. And I saw a very interesting ad in newspaper. And it said, be your own boss. That's what I wanted. So I applied. I had to buy few contracts, few buildings. And that was my start in the cleaning business. After a while, I realized I could make much more money there than my daytime job. I quit and went full-time in cleaning. That's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Milan. And similar question for Joe. Joe, what made you decide to start your own business, and why did you choose the janitorial industry?
Okay. Well, it goes back a few years, but the reality is I have to say that when I left from Portugal at a very young age, I was already somewhat inclined in starting or being in some type of business. As going to college before I came, I had started there in a very small way, buying and selling local products, just as something to make some cash. So I came to Canada, and my intentions were we came to Winnipeg, and Winnipeg, as you guys know, it's cold. So we started. I actually started going to take basic English, and I wanted to get into electrical and mechanical. So I started to attend the technical school. And at the same time, the cleaning industry in Winnipeg was just starting to evolve in a real significant way. And there was a real need for cleaners, for people that you could trust and that would do a proper job for, in cleaning. And the competition was very little competition back at that time. It was only modern that were there, really. And so I started. We started, just doing a couple of jobs. We bought some equipment, and we started doing a few jobs. And soon after, I continued taking basic English for the first, 3-4 months during the day, and we started to clean at night. So it just started to evolve. What became apparent to me was because of my Portuguese background, I could speak a bit of Spanish, and I had a little bit of French, could understand a bit of Italian. So I attracted people. There were no problem in getting reliable people and people that wanted to work. So it just gave me a tremendous advantage. And we just started, and so I dropped everything else and just focused on the cleaning. And I tried to learn as much as possible about cleaning because I didn't know anything about it. And we just, I started to attend most of the stuff in the US, the SCI conventions and different things, seminars, and some of the manufacturers would offer to help. So I really wanted to learn, and I learned everything about cleaning, and I cleaned myself we just kept going. And then we were lucky. I mean, I think luck plays a lot, and being at the right place at the right time, and it just evolved. When we started to expand, a lot of people ask me that question. We started to expand in franchising. So we started to franchises in going Western Canada. And we did that for the first 10 years. And after the first 10 years, we decided that franchising was not working. And we started to buy the franchises back. And in some cases, we would have partners where, still today, we do have some people that participate or have a partnership in that province. And that's really, I credit definitely being at the right place at the right time. And my background definitely helped. And was an easy business to get into. It didn't take a lot of money. It just took a lot of effort and stick to it, just stick to it and make it work.
It's great. Thank you, Joe, for sharing that with us. And on to you, Manny. Manny, as a new Canadian and having just learned the language, can you describe the path you took to become the owner of Hallmark?
When I arrived here, I worked as a cleaner for a year. And then I left the industry and I wanted to get a day job. I got a day job and gone to school in the evening. And I was trying to learn English. That never happened. I'm still learning today. So anyway, but my case was a little different. I went through, I worked, I was a road supervisor for one of the large companies. It was Modern. I was a road supervisor, was a resident manager. I was an area manager downtown Toronto. And that's when I took a lot of experience in that. I was trained by the best and the biggest at the time. And from there on, then I was offered an opportunity to come and work for Hallmark Housekeeping, which George Maligier is the one offered me that position. So, and then we stayed on. I bought some shares into the year later. And later on, 1986, I became the president of Hallmark. And that was very difficult times. I was trying to build a company, but they even got smaller for a while. But I had a dream, and that dream never died. So myself and my team, we worked hard at it. We turned things around. And today, Hallmark is one of, as everybody knows, where it's a first size in the industry. That's what I did. Was a lot of hard work, but I did achieve my dream. Thank you.
Thank you, Manny. I think everyone in the room would agree that it must have taken an exceptional amount of courage to do what you all did. I know it comes naturally to you, but most of us aren't wired that way. So it's quite admirable and commendable. Now, there's no way that what you did was easy and your path was easy. I'm sure all of you had your share of challenges along the way. So, Joe, can you tell us what some of the unexpected challenges were that you encountered when starting and growing your company?
Well, I have to say we could be here for a few hours. But just give you some of the kind of that sticks to my mind. Well, when we started, we started with, we bought a used Army van, one of these that you buy, they go on auction. And, I have to say, it was not easy. We worked 16, 17 hours a day, 7 days a week. As long as there was work to do, it was work. It just very little sleep and a lot of work. Back then, and I'm sure it would be the same in some of the other locations, some of the other cities, but we couldn't afford to have equipment in every location. It didn't matter if it was a scrub machine or vacuums or whatever. So we would carry them in the truck. We would go from location to location, and we would take the scrubbing machine and the vacuum, and we would clean one location, move to the other one, and take all the equipment with you. Well, in Winnipeg, you guys realize how cold it is. So to keep the machines from freezing and keep the liquids and the mops not stuck to the van, it was a lot of fun. So you had to be really careful, and you had to go. So I remember many nights we used to do offices, banks, and we started into grocery stores. And a lot of times we would catch a couple hours sleep behind the store until the store manager came in to open the door and would knock on the van to wake us up so that we would get the store cleaned. So that's definitely, my English, of course, was always a challenge. It's poor. I didn't have the time to take much school in Canada. So I became more of a listener than a talker. So I'm not very good at public speaking, but that's the reality. But became a better listener. And with the years going by, I learned that actually the clients preferred that's what they want, is you to be a good listener versus a good talker. And that's the reality. And my other big challenge was technology. We didn't have any computers for years. Everything was done by hand. Everything was done on write systems, payroll, everything on the typewriter. So technology has evolved so much over the years. When we got our first computers, they were called K-Pro. It was a blue and gray box. And that was the beginning. So I seen it evolve so much, and I have learned so much. I try to learn something new every day. But in the last 5-10 years, technology really has taken, full force in. So it's been a challenge to learn all these different things, because I like to know, and I like to know what's going on. So I make an effort to learn. So that's been a big challenge.
Great, thank you, Joe. And Manny, can you tell us about some lessons that you learned as you grew your business?
Well, I made some points here. Okay, it's sleepless nights, that's for sure, that I learned. I had to live with very little sleep. I learned not to make decisions on my own. I learned to deal with financial institutions. I learned how to win, to be a winner and a loser. And I learned from my own mistakes. So that was a lot of challenges. I mean, I guess for you to learn, you have to do it yourself. You have to go through. And I guess when you're young and you're naive, that's when you do it. You do it day after day. So that's the story.
Fantastic, thank you. I think any of the contractors here in the room can relate to knowing what it's like to win and lose, and how important it is to be able to do both of those things as a professional. So, and then finally on to you, Milan, and similar question. What wisdom can you share with the group about starting and growing a janitorial business?
Well, janitorial business is not rocket science. It is simple enough that anyone can do it, but complicated enough that only few can do it right. Starting cleaning business can be quite lucrative if you deliver good quality work and keep your clients happy. Let's not forget the employees. They play a big part in your success. Very simple.
Great, thank you, Milan. Let's shift to a more lighthearted topic. While you are all in the cleaning business, this is not an industry that has been always so polished. I'm sure many of us have heard some fairly entertaining or possibly peculiar stories from the janitorial world. So Manny, what interesting story can you share with us today? And I know there's some that you probably can't share, but what can you share?
Well, to be honest, there's a lot of them, and a lot of, you can't even remember most of it. One thing that I know about cleaners is the cleaners they always blamed for when something disappeared or misplaced, and we had to pay pair of shoes, you have to pay drums. That sometimes they've been put in a garbage can, and we're still responsible. So the cleaners been an industry that the cleaners themselves, unfortunately, they've been working hard, underpaid, and blamed for everything what's going wrong. That's just my view.
Yeah, that's. I saw all of our operations nodding when you were talking about the cleaners being blamed, and the shoes in the garbage bin always kills me. That happens probably once a week, and it's never the Aldos; it's always the Louboutins. So, and we're always responsible. Milan, decades ago, the janitorial industry was very different from the one we know today. What interesting stories can you share from the early days?
I got a good one. Actually, when at a certain time I was lucky enough to be hired by one of the largest company in Canada, and I was hired as an operations manager. And we had a lot of clients, even in Toronto here. And one of the clients was complaining. Every day when I came to work, there was a complaint, damn it. So I thought that the best way to deal with it was ignore it. They will smarten up. And after about quite a while, suddenly the complaint stopped. So I waited for about a week, and then I decided I'm going to go and introduce myself. So I walked in. It was on my way to the office, and I had to wait for the manager to see me. So I was walking. It was an open concept office, so I was walking through the office, and it was nice and clean. Floors were shining, and the manager came. So I introduced myself, and I made a comment that I like the cleaning. The cleaning is pretty good. And I was trying to be positive. And she was better than me. She just looked at me and said, yeah, I like that. It's nice that you like it, but you're not doing it anymore. We fired you a week ago.
Hey, wow, that was good. Wasn't expecting that. And Joe, what interesting experience from your journey through the janitorial world can you share with us today?
Okay, well, again, I do have many, but one that sticks to my mind, and I think it's kind of interesting that you people to hear about it, is I learned from earlier on and never forgot the importance of looking after the client and providing a good service, but developing a trust. That trust is so important. And I have a good example because it really helped us a lot. And the first few years, we had cash flow problems just like anything else, especially when we started to grow and we were growing. And to get a large line of credit at the bank, it was very difficult. It was not easy. So we were lucky. We had a few larger clients that I spoke to, and they were easy to actually convince in paying us 1 year in advance. So they would pay us in January for the entire year, and we would give them a discount. So we would discount the monthly billing, we go forward, but they would pay us in advance. And that helped us immensely. Today, I'm not sure if that would be possible, especially one was tied into a government corporation, But they could do it, and they were happy to do it because they would save money that they could use on something else, on their own field. So it was a win-win. But I know it's not easy to happen. But it's that trust factor. I have to say that I didn't do this alone, and I could not do it alone. It's been a team effort. It's been a lot of people, too many people that I would have to name that helped us in getting to where we are today. But it's a lot of people say we are in the cleaning business, and we are in the cleaning business, but it is we are in the business of managing people, and because the result is cleaning, but it is more managing people than anything else. So I always been the believer in trusting people and giving people a chance. A lot of times you were to let go a cleaner that did something wrong or whatever, but I believe in giving people a chance. Sometimes a second chance, sometimes a third chance, and I have examples, clear examples, where people were in those situations and they became building manager or site managers, area managers, some of them even VPs that would be gone for different reasons right at the beginning. So I believe people, it's our most valuable asset.
Great. Thank you, Joe. So the last question for the owners in this section of the panel relates to succession, and this is where it gets fun. So the passing of the torch, and in all of your situations, this torch is being handed to your own children. So gentlemen, you built an empire from the ground up, and your company has formed part of your identity. It can't be easy handing the reins to someone else. So the same question for all of you, how are you handling this? And we'll start with Joe.
Okay, well, again, it's very interesting. Dennis started to come to work with me Saturdays, holidays, you name it. And he would start by, small or young, stocking up shelves on our warehouse. At one point, he knew better the products than I actually did myself. But he learned from there. So so then he went through school, and he would help here and there. Once he was finished school, I didn't force him to do it. He was the one that chose to do it, and he chose to continue or start working full-time with us. So he's been now working with us for the last 20 years. The last few is worked closer to me, or a lot closer to me on a daily basis. A couple of years ago now, we got very serious about succession planning, not just for me, but for the whole team. So we hired an outside consultant that worked for many years with family companies, and he has been a tremendous help. So he evaluated our whole team. He consulted with our existing team, and we started either promoting or hiring some people from the outside on the areas where we actually were weak. I've been doing this, and our partner out west, Brian Gingras, has been doing exactly the same thing with his son, Rob Gingras, and his son-in-law, Rob Scott, which I'm sure some of you know. We must, the way I see it is we got to continue to be humble, dedicated, show respect, and show us, a strong role model. And we need to take care of our people. And if we take care of them, they'll take care of us and take care of our clients. We are a family company, and we believe in maintaining a family company. That's what makes us different. And so that's the direction that we want to go. We want to continue treating people as people, not just as numbers. And I believe, we don't know the future, but the cleaning industry is essential, and I think we're going to continue to do well. It's just a matter of sticking to what we know best and not get to be a jack of all trades.
Thank you, Joe. And Manny, same question for you. How are you handling the process of handing off the torch to your sons?
Well, you were asking if that's easy. This is not easy because in order to be successful, you have to have hands-on and you have to have the control. And I've been that type of individual. Like things didn't, nothing moved without my permission, so for years. So as I'm getting older, I start seeing things different. So, and we all should understand when you get to a certain age, I'm in my 70s, no secret, and it's come to a time that it's time to change the guard. And I realized today what has happened with the new generation. I did well, but they even did better. So you guys, the new generation, along with a new team, you guys did it excellent. So even better than what I started, but you guys kind of finished it up another level, bring it up to another level. So this is time for me to sit back and I think with them, my sons have worked with me since they never worked for anybody else pretty well, which I would prefer if they had worked for somebody else before they came work for Hallmark. I think it's a good thing. I think they learn that they bit more, not because they not work hard. They actually work too hard sometimes, but you learn to follow rules, and that's what I did for years. Because the way I was brought up, I didn't work for anybody back home. I worked for my dad. So, and I learned here that you have to be disciplined. You have deadlines. So, but anyway, this is what it is. But they are doing very well along with the team. I'm still around, and they could move on and be successful better than I have, because I didn't have a father to give me no ideas on the field, and I couldn't have nobody to advise me. So I think they're on the right track.
Great, thank you, Manny. And Milan, same question for you. How are you handling this?
Well, in my case, it was, I never really, I wasn't thinking about passing the buck and letting Michael to take over. He was doing what I told him. And until one day, I was aware of the fact that I was learning from my mistakes. Every time I made one, it was a good lesson because I was solving it. And one day Michael comes to me and says, "Dad, it was about 10 years ago, do you really want me to take over the company?" And of course, son, I gave him this motivational speech, and he was nodding his head very calmly. And when I finished, he says, "Dad, why don't you go and find yourself a hobby?" And he really upset me because I didn't talk to him for a few days. And then I was at home, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking, you know what, that guy is right. If I tell him exactly what to do, he will never learn much. Let him take over, and he'll make mistakes, and he will have to correct them and keep going. And so what made it easier for me, because I cannot retire. I cannot just sit at home and watch TV. No, there's nothing to see on TV anyway anymore. So I was about 2002. I got a pilot license, and I started flying. And one of my trips, I discovered old military airport. There was nothing there. Just few runways. They removed the buildings after the war. So I talked to the military and I purchased it and started building hangars and renting them to pilots. So today we have 150 planes there, and the airport is quite profitable, and that keeps me going. So I packed my bags and left United.
Thank you, Milan. That concludes our first section of questions for the owners. You've all been so honest and open with your personal experiences and stories and feelings, and we thank you for that. So let's give one more hand for the owners. So now let's shift to the sons and successors. It's a tough act to follow, gentlemen, but I know we're all very excited to hear from you today. And this is your chance to fire back as well, too. This is why we have separate tables. So, we heard from your fathers about the transition of leadership and passing of the torch. So let's stick with that topic. And Michael, we'll start with you. What stage of the transition are you in, and how are you handling this?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm just thankful to be here. Oh. I'm just thankful to be here because telling my father to get a hobby is not a real life good decision. So I'm just, it's good that it worked out. As far as our company, our leadership transition, my father mentioned it, is actually complete. So that was, and I have to say that's probably it was an extremely critical point for our company. Because it really allowed things to move different directions. So that allows also now me to focus on our digital transformation, which we are working really hard to make sure that it connects our partners, our clients, and our team members. Because as Mr. Correia mentioned, we are in the labor industry. We provide labor. And that is the people are our biggest asset.
Great, thank you, Michael. And on to you, David. What aspects of the business have you begun to lead, and where do you still need guidance from your father?
As the executive vice president at Hallmark, I'm involved in all aspects of the business. The success of the business depends on the frontline team members, like everybody has said here. So delivering the best service possible. Therefore, it's very important our executive team is always continuously leading and supporting our operations team, which is the heart of our business. Mainly though, besides operations, I lead in areas that I developed my strongest strengths. Purchasing, procurement, equipment technician services, overseeing our out-of-town leadership teams in Ottawa and Western Canada, and most recently being responsible for the financial portion of our proposals for new business. As for looking for guidance, I'm not sure I could actually say that I go to my father much for guidance. As my father would say, I tend not to speak enough to him about things happening in the business. Mainly because in comparison, my brother talks too much to him, so.
That's correct.
I would say, though, that I do tend to go to him looking for some type of reassurance that if a decision I've made or will be making would meet his approval. 90% of the time I get my reassurances, and 10% of the time I get an earful with a clear reminder who owns Hallmark. But just because I'm not asking for guidance doesn't mean I get the guidance I need. My father has so many years of experience and wisdom, and naturally continuously just provides that guidance in the office and out of the office.
That's great. Thank you, David. And Dennis, tell us where you're at in the transition and what your current responsibilities entail. Maybe tell us how they've changed over the years.
Thank you, Chris. Can everybody hear me okay? Yep. My dad is still very active in the day-to-day operations, but at the same time, we are preparing for our future. I suppose in any family-run business, there comes a time where the owner and the family just can't do everything. Whether it's to keep up with the growth or have all the necessary skills and experiences to deal with regulations, client expectations, etc. We have been at this point for some time now, and we realized we had to make some fundamental structural changes. So, over the past year and a half, we have been making some organizational changes to help us better deal with the challenges and growth. As my dad touched on earlier, we engaged an external consultant to conduct an organizational review at the end of 2021. During this process, we added several new senior level positions and put an organizational structure in place to support our future growth. In this new structure, I am the Executive Vice President of Administration for Central and Eastern Canada. And I have several senior level positions reporting into me in finance, human resources, health and safety, IT, and communications. We strongly encourage communications and meetings at all levels, both face-to-face and virtually, including at our executive level, where we meet monthly, and at our senior leadership group level, where we meet quarterly. In terms of where I am in the transition, first, I must say I'm in no hurry to see my dad step back. In fact, I'd be quite happy if he decided to stay forever. But when the time does come, and my dad decides to step back, I will be ready. Unlike my dad, I had a head start in a lot of ways, including a degree in business from the University of Manitoba. Now, many may argue you don't really need a degree to succeed in our industry, and that might be right, but it certainly doesn't hurt. And the plan is for me to be surrounded by a strong and experienced group of industry leaders. I really like the executive team that we've put together, the organizational structure that we've also put together, and the processes that we've put in place. And I like the corporate vision and value statement that we all adhere to on a daily basis that stresses teamwork, communication, and customer service. As a company, we have been a beacon of consistency for over 50 years. We are a Canadian-owned and operated, family-valued company that prides itself in being hardworking and reliable. There's a lot going on in our industry these days, but one thing for sure will never change, and that's us. So whether it's my dad or me leading Be Clean, in conjunction with our partners out west, we will be remaining true to what makes us who we are.
Thanks, Dennis. So similar to the question that we asked your fathers, there's no way that your journey has come without challenges. So, Michael, we'll start with you. What are your greatest challenges in taking over the business from your father, and what excites you the most?
So I would have to say is really balancing two different opinions. You know, my father and I, although we agree on a lot of things, we don't agree on a lot of things as well. It's really trying to balance the different personalities, the different perspectives. My father still loves to, like we talk all the time. Every family meeting we have, Thanksgiving dinners and things like that. We're always talking about the company. We're always talking about business, and he still always gives me his feedback, which is fantastic. But it's really just balancing those two different mindsets, And then the other challenge I would say for us is really shifting the culture of our company and everybody in it from an entrepreneurial company more to a enterprise level company. That's a real kind of a shift in thinking and processing. So it's difficult for some people too. So it's really kind of getting that culture prepared, and then at the same time trying to really maintain our family integrity and values. So.
And we're going to ask the same question to both Dennis and David, which is, how does the family dynamic impact the transition of leadership? And would it be easier or harder if you weren't related? And Dennis, will get you to go first on that one.
Yeah, can I read your notes there, David? They probably apply to me too. In all honesty, for sure. I'm sure some of it is the same. Thanks, Chris. I have to start by saying that my dad and I are very close, and it's safe to say that I respect my dad, and I know he respects me. The reality is that I only have one sibling, my sister. She's the smart one, because she decided not to get involved in the cleaning industry. So that means my dad is really stuck with me. And to answer the question, there is a great family dynamic in play between us. in terms of the transition of leadership. My dad wants me to be his successor when I'm ready, and I want to do everything possible to safeguard the legacy of success that has been created. I don't pretend to be the smartest person, nor the most knowledgeable. We have a very experienced and talented executive team at BeClean, and I do feel very fortunate to be part of it. I realize that I will have the responsibility to lead this team with the same values and expectations that my dad helped create and practiced for the past 50 plus years. I should also say that I'm very happy that we have been able to attract top talent and industry experienced people, including those reporting into me in finance, HR, health and safety, IT, and communications. It makes my job a lot easier, and to be honest, I have learned a lot from each and every one of them, and I know that'll continue as well. In terms of it being easier or harder if we weren't related, that really depends on the day that you ask that question. But all kidding aside, I'm sure there are situations where it might be easier, and there are those that will be harder. But because it's a family-run business, to me, that's only a natural thing.
Excellent. And David, the same question for you.
The most obvious difficulty for transitioning leadership is that the founders, of course, why we're here in this panel, is they don't want to let go of what they created. We can't blame them either. They dedicated hours and hours of their lives into these businesses. In the beginning, they risked everything and struggled financially and sacrificed many things in life to ensure their success. For us, the next gen, it's difficult because with today's technology, we're so accessible that so much happens in 24 hours in our operations. As much as I'd like to keep my father fully informed, it's virtually impossible to do so without causing any delays in our operations. Decisions need to be made quickly in our world so that we can move on to the next pending item to be completed. As for would it be harder or not, I don't know if it would be harder or not because I've never been on the other side. Being in an executive position, though, gives me the opportunity to develop some of our own team members and promote them. So just like them, I had to prove myself to my boss by demonstrating commitment to my growth and the company. There was never a guarantee that I would be in the position I am today or take ownership of Hallmark in the future. My father always made it clear that his company would never just be handed down to anybody and that he's the only one that will decide whatever happens to it. At times, having the last name of an owner made it more difficult for me to prove myself to our customers and also to our staff. Customers would put me to the test, like once I had to clean 68 flights of stairs at Scotia Plaza for a fire drill that never actually happened. And staff would give me attitude because they thought, what did I know about cleaning, right? You're just the owner's son, and didn't respect me. Obviously, over the years of many days and nights and hard work, eventually I gained that trust and respect. The one major benefit of being related was bypassing the hiring process and being given the opportunity to learn the business from the bottom up. From the day I started, an unofficial succession plan was in place for me with the goal that one day I'd be in a leadership role at the company. Through my last 20 years at Hallmark, I was in many different positions: equipment technician, cleaner, resident manager, ops manager, each for a short period of time, but just enough to gain the experience I needed in that area of the business to continue on.
That's great. Thank you, David. As a final question to the successors, we'd like to ask you about the future. After all, one of the major reasons we're all here today at the ISSA show is to learn what the future of this industry holds. So Dennis, as the next generation, how do you plan to move the business forward?
Thanks, Chris. How much time do we have left in this session? Are we good for time?
Yeah,
okay.
We're okay. Yeah.
This might take a few extra minutes, but seriously though, first off, I'm going to make sure that we continue to have talented, knowledgeable, and caring people in leadership positions who want to be part of the BeClean family and who want to be part of our future. There are challenges out there today, and there are more coming. So we need a strong, cohesive team to successfully navigate these challenges to continue our success. One pressure that our industry is constantly facing is to continue to drive efficiencies through innovation and technology. In this regard, we launched an internal platform last year called the Honeycomb, which allowed us to digitize most of our policies and procedures. This platform makes them more readily available for everyone. This year, we are rolling out more technological offerings to our teams to make our work lives easier and our results more professional in areas such as quality assurance, task verification, request management, periodic tracking, and time and attendance. Another example of pressure in our industry, and not really just in our industry, revolves around labor shortages everywhere. And it's only going to get worse. Why? Well, the demographics of our industry, and I suppose for society as a whole, are rapidly changing. We have an aging population. On top of that, people today and going forward will have more job options than ever. That means we will need to try and find new ways to attract and retain our staff. But will that really be enough? I wonder if the shrinking labor market will be unkind to our industry. And if that's true, then we really do need to look outside the proverbial box. And that's why I think robotics may play a bigger role in our industry going forward. Not necessarily just for operational efficiencies, but out of necessity. Currently, we have robotics in the testing stage, and we are actually using some technologies in select locations across Canada. I do believe robotics will play a more critical role in our industry in the future as the demographics continue to evolve and place more pressure on our ability to provide a quality and reliable service. I do want to touch on a third point, and then I promise I'll stop. But this is an important one to me, and that's our desire to continue to grow our business partnerships with Indigenous communities. We now have an Indigenous Relations Manager who works out of Saskatchewan and collaborates closely with his counterparts in Western Canada to develop and support our Indigenous partnerships. We recognize our role in truth and reconciliation across Canada and the 94 calls to action, including business and economy. We pride ourselves on the belief that every relationship is unique and special in its own way. With over 600 First Nations in our country and each community having a different set of priorities and goals, establishing and growing successful and meaningful partnerships is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Every Indigenous partnership we enter into is built on ensuring the business has long-term, mutually sustainable benefits, but most importantly, meets the specific needs and goals of the First Nations community we're partnering with.
Thank you, Dennis, and very well said. And Michael, what do you plan on doing differently than your father? And I guess I'd be careful with this one.
No, you're going to hear some similarities. So that was very good. Our goal is to establish ourselves as a leading technology-first facilities maintenance or service company within Canada, and like Be Clean, we're really working hard on developing our own programs. There are a lot of programs out there. We're working internally ourselves, developing it. And this, what this means for us is our entire business functioning through a single channel. All our subcontractor and employee management, all our data reporting will be in real time. Our e-commerce, all our training, all our equipment management, all our finance. It's all going to be on one platform. So that's a really big that's a small sentence, but a really big project. So that's really focused on that for the next 5 to 10 years, and it might take that long to build it. And the other real focus for us is we talked about people being our biggest asset. We're going to continue working and helping underemployed communities find fair and safe employment nationally. So our company vision is provide safe, healthy environments for all.
Great, thank you, Michael. So Oh, sorry, but we need to ask David as well too. David, what we'd love to hear from you is the innovations and technologies that you plan to implement in the coming years.
Well, being at the ISSA show, it's a good topic. So I'd like both of them mentioned. Hallmark also, we're developing our own app to have one big platform for our finances and everything, but mainly talking about our cleaning operations. In our industry, I think robotics and sensor technology is still at the forefront of innovation. Since COVID, we've seen a bit of movement towards using occupancy centers to send alerts to our team members, directing them into areas which require cleaning. On the robotics side, we now see more vacuum models available on the market, which is more appealing to our office sector. Obviously, we spend more time in the office buildings vacuuming than we do on an auto scrubber, so this is, more appealing to that sector. But for some time now, because all this great technology needs a good power source, I've been keeping my eye on the development of lithium-ion battery being put into cleaning equipment. As you know, cordless vacuums have been around for many years now, but could never actually really fully replace a corded vacuum. It just didn't have the power, it didn't have the runtime. But now, with the latest battery technology on the market, I've seen one manufacturer, that I won't say because I don't want to be biased, but was able to achieve a bronze CRI certified vacuum. This has never been achieved before in the past with any previous battery technology. And in order to achieve this certification, you have to have a 40 to 49% soil removal performance from a carpeted surface. So that just proves that the power of the lithium-ion batteries have improved to still give you the runtime, but also give you that suction power that you require to actually clean a carpet properly. Auto scrubber manufacturers will now also be offering lithium-ion battery pack options, which will double the run times, triple the lifespan of the battery pack, and improve charging speeds. I truly think the improved lithium-ion technology is a game changer, not only for the traditional equipment we're used to, but also for any new innovative items coming out on the market.
Thanks, David. I like how you went to talking about sort of something that's very practical as well, too. As we know, there's a lot of promise with robotics and sensor technology, but at the end of the day, we're still vacuuming floors, and using auto scrubbers, and those things need to work as well, too. So I like that you spoke to some of those things as well. So I understand that we have the room until 12, so I wanted to go back to the owners and ask one more question, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. We are slightly limited for time, so maybe, gentlemen, in 2 minutes or less, if you can tell us what advice you would give to someone who wants to start their own janitorial company today. And Joe, we'll start with you.
It's not an easy business to be in, but it is an easy business to get in. You have to commit yourself 100% to it if you want to do well on the long run. Don't try to be a jack of all trades. Don't focus on other things. Stay focused on that that you want to do, and you want to be successful on the cleaning business. The reality. I mean, it's just there is so much to it today. I mean, it's getting a lot more difficult than it used to be, and the competition is a lot more. There is a lot more competition today than it used to be, and the people today, in general, the competition are all doing good work. So it's not like it used to be 40, 50 years ago. So it has changed. So you definitely gotta commit yourself and do it well. And I always say, I mean, it's a people business. You gotta surround yourself with people that are committed and that want to be part of the team. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So you need to identify those key people that will help you to do it. Aside from that, I mean, it's generally. For, it's always been my way of looking at things. Is when we want to try to decide on something and we're not sure what to decide, always put yourself on the other people's shoes, as you could always be that person. That's how you need to look at it, and that way you'll easily come to a decision as to which way you should go on it.
Great, thank you, Joe. And over to Manny. Manny, what advice would you give to someone who wanted to start their own janitorial business today?
You hear me now? Yes. Anyway, if you want to start your own business, you got to be prepared to work very hard up there, making very little initially. But the secret of the business is, you work hard, and you don't expect to make it overnight. It takes years for you to build it, and you been provide the service. Be honest with your clients. And obviously, takes a while. There's times that you say, hey, I'm not going to make it. The next day, you got to go back and try it again harder. As Joe said, it's a lot more difficult in these days because it takes a lot more machinery today that years ago wasn't needed to. There's more unions. There's a lot more complicated. The buildings, like if you talk about Toronto, an example, there's so much bigger buildings than before. So that takes years before you be recognized in order to be invited into those. I learned that years ago when I came from a large company that I ran downtown Toronto. And when I pretty well got working for a smaller company, well, Hallmark, people didn't ever give me opportunity, but they thought we were small. And it took years before they kind of trust you. You got to be that size. You got to have that backup. You got to prove. It's just not what you're not going to do. With you, people want to see what you do, what you have proved yourself. So that's what you face. But anyway, but there's still always opportunity. There's always opportunity. The world doesn't stop. Just if you have that, I think if it that this business or any other business, you got to be prepared and be prepared to have the patience to work with people. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Manny. And same question for you, Milan. What advice would you give? And it sounds like you can speak to both the janitorial and aviation business. So.
In aviation is a little bit different because all you have to do sit back and rent hangars. That's it, and the money is coming in. In cleaning, it's I would say that what's important. Be able to develop a good cleaning system that will appeal to customers, and then be prepared to work about 14 to 16 hours a day. That's it.
Sounds easy. Anyway, just want to thank again our panelists today. That was fantastic. So a round of applause for everyone on the panel. We'd like to open it up now to some Q&A. So for the next 10 minutes or so, if you want to just raise your hand and ask a question to our panelists. Yes. Sure.
Okay. Can you hear me now? All right. Katerina Tsai. I run an employee-owned commercial cleaning company. So it's about 100 people, and I'm just curious, right? We're very small compared to you guys. What advice would you have for me in terms of points to compete with you guys that I can, and points that I shouldn't even think about?
I mean, this open to anybody if...
Well, okay, got it. I mean, all I can tell you is, I guess my advice would be you need to do it in stages. So you need to look at competing on areas that you are comfortable with, on the size that you are comfortable with. Just like Manny said, to get a big building is very similar to when you graduate out of university and you're looking for a job and people ask you for experience. What is there? Until you get that first job. So it's the same thing on the cleaning business. You would have to look at the areas that you'd be comfortable with, that you can, slowly but surely increase the size and that you can show that you can handle it, that you have the backup, that you have what it takes if there is an emergency or if there is a problem or if whatever comes up. And that'll be how you can grow, by stages.
Great, thank you. Anybody else want to provide an answer? Okay, well, we'll go to the next question then. Anybody else? Nobody else have a question? In the back there? Carl, I think your name is?
Kevin Jardam, the owner of DWC Cleaning Group. Question for Dennis over there. You mentioned robotics. What's your thoughts on artificial intelligence and how it's going to affect the cleaning industry in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, especially with the LLMs in place? I don't know if you guys are aware of ChatGPT, Tesla's full self-driving. So where do you think artificial intelligence will be in 10, 20 years?
What was your name again? Kevin? Thanks for the question, Kevin. To be completely honest, it's tough to pinpoint where AI is going to take us. Never mind even the next 10, 20, 30 years. Can probably even be the next 2 or 3 years, really. It's both somewhat concerning to see the potential of where AI could take us, but at the same time, there are certainly some positive attributes, and there's a lot to be learned yet. I know internally we've had some discussions at a very informal level in terms of kind of ChatGPT, more so the Microsoft version of it, because we subscribe to the Microsoft Teams and Microsoft environment. Are they? Oh, okay. Well, no surprise. And speaking to our key IT people, they're deathly afraid. I know some of us, the first thought is, why don't we utilize AI to help us build tenders, help us compare pricing, perform budgets, anything like that. Those are the thoughts that we have at a certain level. And thank goodness I spoke to our key IT people, because the first thing they say is, wait a minute, be very careful what you're putting into these AI platforms, because you don't know where this information is ending up. So they might say that there's no specific issue with it. They'll come up, they'll generate answers, they'll generate formats for you, what have you. But nobody really knows what's at the other end of these platforms and where that information may lead or may go to. So that's something that certainly opened up my eyes to AI, again, in an informal way. Without a doubt, it's starting to change the industry, albeit probably in small pieces, percentages. But it's going to be changing not only our industry, but every industry tremendously in the next probably even less than 10 years, like we said. Yeah.
Great question, Kevin. And sure.
Specifically, the labor force would be my like artificial intelligence in the labor force. Like, where do you think that's going to go? What's going to happen long term, 20, 30 years?
No doubt it's going to have a significant impact on the labor force. As I mentioned, and I believe was also mentioned before by some of my fellow panelists, that labor not only is, our people are key to our business, right? We are a people business. And I don't think we can lose sight of that. But there's no doubt that considering the issues we're facing in recruiting labor, retaining labor, AI eventually, even in forms that I don't even pretend to imagine of how they're going to shape our industry, are certainly going to be able to fill gaps. And who knows? If this continues with the troubled labor market, we might not have a choice but to adopt it in more significant ways in order to help us serve our clients. Because if things don't improve with bringing in good people and recruiting good people, we won't have a choice. And I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of where I see things going.
Great. Thanks for that response, Dennis. Yes.
Kajin from Cadillac Fairview. My question for all you guys is, what is your clients asking you guys now that weren't asking you guys 5 years from now? That could be like sustainability, technology, whatever that is, that you guys are kind of putting into your proposals this time around.
It's good to meet you.
I would say, like I said, there's a big push for this data collection, right? Like they want, let's collect this data from the buildings, how many people are using washrooms, collecting the metrics on paper and just using that data to alter our services around the data instead of our traditional, there's so many square feet and there's so many floors and there's a metric to laying it out. Now they're using, they want the data to put it and build a true plan that's actually going to work for their facilities. I think that's the biggest change I see these days.
That works. Okay. I have to hit it a couple times. If I can just add to that, I think they're also looking at, with that data, because it's exactly what our customers are asking us as well, and I think we're in a little bit different fields in the cleaning, but they're also asking us to, with the data, we're able to help them a lot more with even their operations and how they manage their locations. So we become heavily influenced in what they do. So I think that's just to add to that point.
Great. Any other questions? Oh, back here. Maybe walk.
First of all, it's a pleasure to be here, to be talking to you, big leaders who has experience in the cleaning industry. My name is Rustam Abraha. I'm 30 years old. I do own a company for cleaning service and restoration. I do have a great experience from my previous history, which I had about 50 employees, but unfortunately, I didn't have the knowledge of pricing. I didn't have the knowledge of managing, and we lost some of the contract that we had. So I'm here to ask on how do you do the pricing? We do get leads on janitorial services, and we do get the doors open for us, but we don't know how to price it. When I say we don't know how to price, I do know how to price it, but we don't know with the other markets, cleaning industries, to compare the price where, opportunities can be open for us too. That's all. But I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Who would like to answer that one?
I would say probably everybody has their own logic to pricing. And I think probably any advice I would give you is never be afraid to ask who you submitted to price to for feedback. Where were you? Where could you improve? We all kind of, figured out what the market price is by doing exactly that, right? I wasn't a winner in this one. Can you give me some feedback? See what direction I need to go in. Was it my numbers? Was it my package? Was it the experience component and all that, right? There's a lot of factors that the customers look at. Price is probably on the top of the list, but there is other factors they look at. Like some of the leaders over there said that, like, your experience, for instance, could play a role in their decision as well.
Great. Thanks, David. Anybody else want to take a stab at that one? I think we probably have time for one more question. So anybody else have one more question before we wrap up? Okay. So Ken, did you want to say a few things before we...
I have no questions, but I have a few thoughts. Joe and Manny and Milan, first of all, thank you for your time that you've taken today. Before this session started, my level of respect and admiration for each of you was pretty high. After listening to you speak today, it's even higher. And then, you know, for the young men on the left side here, you know, listening to your comments, things that I were thinking were, you know, the intelligence that you obviously have, the commitment, the respect for your fathers. I can only think, you know, that the future of Be Clean, Hallmark, and United is in excellent hands for the future. And you three gentlemen must be extremely proud of your sons. So again, thank you to the audience for attending, and thank you to the panelists. And when Chris started, I think he made a comment to the effect that I've never been a moderator before, and so if I had to score him, I think everybody would agree. I think it would be a 10 out of 10. Chris, you did a fantastic job. So that concludes our session. I hope you enjoyed it, and enjoy the rest of the day and the show, and thank you.